I would now like to welcome Molly back up to the stage. Would you guys give it up for Molly?
All right. So the first dynamic that we talked about was character. Now we're going to talk about connection, which is being able to emotionally bond with another. Genesis 2:24 says this. This is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. The word there for united means to bond. And I feel like being a mom of 3 kids under the age of 10, I am constantly finding things around my house that are permanently bonded together. Hence the glue gun. Those things need to be thrown out the window. But yeah, a connection is a deep, deep bond. Ron Johnson, the pastor here at Restoration Church, he's writing a book on relationships right now, and this is what he said. Let's see, let me find it. A marriage is not a piece of paper. It is not 2 people living together. It is not a ceremony. It is not a couple who happens to have kids. A marriage is 2 people who are deeply attached. 2 people who cleave to each other and become one. See, the deep bond between a couple is what makes that relationship unique and sets it apart from all other relationships. So it begs to ask the question, are you bondable? What's your past look like? Have you bonded in the past with family members or with friends? What are maybe some things that you need to work through? Some maybe personal baggage that keeps you from connecting and bonding. And here, I'm not talking about, just like your likes and your hobbies and interests. Because when Jason and I first met, we honestly didn't have a lot in common. He liked hunting, fishing, skinning deer in his front yard, golfing. I prefer dancing, music, the refined things of life. But since then, we've kind of learned to enjoy each other's interests and hobbies. But there was something that kind of drew us to one another. And we're not even I wouldn't say either of us are these really deep emotional people. We were just drawn to each other, and we had some sort of emotional connection that has continued on in our relationship. I'm not saying it's bad to have common interests. Common interests and hobbies can bring a lot of fun in life, but there has to be something deeper that brings a couple together. So Jason's going to come out now, and we're going to just kind of do some Q&A, just some common questions that people ask when it comes to having a committed relationship and bonding. Right?
Thanks for refining me.
Oh, I refined him. He likes all the finer things now.
Yeah, craft coffee,
The ballet.
Stop that. Okay, so Molly, let's ask you some questions. Question number 1, how do I have a committed relationship without losing my identity in it?
Okay. Well, that question, Jason, first it shows that you know your identity first. So I think that's a really important first step in a relationship, is just to be secure with who you are. It's super important in your 20s, going into your 30s, to figure out uniquely who you have been created to be. Otherwise, when you enter a relationship, you're just going to kind of take on the character traits of that other person, and then you kind of will lose any sense of yourself in that relationship.
And I think it's also we find common interests, but it's not having the feel like you have to have common interests together always. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think so many people think I got to have the same interests as the person I'm dating or I'm married to. You need some of that, but I think it's also creating some space where you can have interest and have a life on your own, have your own friends, and have some other things to get away from, so that you can have your own life, but you're still able to connect. So I think there's both. Yeah. You got to have your own identity, and then also you're having an identity together.
And I think of it as that, so most people in this room either fall on one end of the spectrum. You're either a person that's more, you would say you're an independent person, you kind of do your own thing, or you would say you're someone who's more dependent, and you just like to have people by you a lot, right? When you come into a relationship, we want to be interdependent. So we want to have a sense of, having our independence, being able to do things on our own, but then also being able to depend on somebody as well. So I just ask you to evaluate yourself. Okay, where do you fall on the spectrum? Which one of those do you need to grow in? That'll help you have a healthy relationship.
Okay, next question. Yeah. How do I practice then healthy bonding?
How do I practice healthy bonding? What do you think about this one?
I think it's again, it goes back to the hobby things. I think so many people think bonding is the hobbies, but it's having appropriate bonding during the times and seasons of your relationship. So I think a lot of times when people start getting in a relationship. It's like first date, second date, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I love you. I just want to spend all my time with you. And you almost become so quick into that super connection, emotional bonding that it's too fast.
Yeah.
And then you've like kind of gone all the way emotionally connecting, and then there's nothing left, because your whole life in a relationship is you're continually bonding. It's not like you have to be completely emotionally bonded at first. Like it's progression.
Well, and it sounds like you're saying your bonding should kind of in dating match your commitment, right? Like the level of bonding should match the level of commitment in the relationship.
Okay, next. When should you say you're in love with someone?
Oh, I think this is similar to kind of what we just talked about, but we use the analogy of seasons to start off. Like there's seasons in a relationship and it gets more serious. And you said this, that love is laying down your life and sacrificing for somebody. And so I think it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. I think as you progress through the seasons and things get more serious and you really actually think, okay, I would be willing to lay my life down for this person and really sacrifice for them, you should be able to have some sort of, stronger commitment to go with it.
Well, I mean, and we have different ways we use love, like, love you, bro. Like, there's a difference between that and like, Molly, I love you with all my heart. And when we say that, when there's that deep connection, it's like, I better be able to back that up. I better be able to back that up by sacrificing myself, by laying down my life. I think sometimes we get too much on these like rules of like, when do I do this? Is it like date 7? It's when can you back that word up? When can you actually say, I do love you, I will lay down my life for you, I will sacrifice for you, I want to be with you like that. So I think it just depends on the couple and where you're at. And a lot of people, like, if you've been in a lot of relationships, you kind of can gauge that a little bit better. But I've been very cautious with those words because there's something about that bonds you deeply.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. How do you foster connection in a relationship? So if you're dating, maybe you're wanting to date, maybe you're single, maybe you're married, how do you foster connection in a relationship?
I think that you have to create space for connection. In our world, like we are busy, we're going all the time, we have social media, like we're stimulated so much. Actually connecting with somebody takes to take a deep breath, think, not be stimulated for a minute, and actually like do the hard work of connecting, And so I think it's not something that is natural, especially in our world nowadays, is just to be able to naturally connect with somebody. So I think maybe turning off devices, being intentional. Like Jason and I, we have intentional date nights, and we ask each other intentional questions, and we don't look at our phones, and we kind of create a space for it to happen.
And you can get stuck in relationships, like in marriage even, we can get stuck just kind of doing the same thing, watching the same show, or doing the same thing. And so you do have to be intentional to foster that connection. So we have character, we have connection, and then we're gonna have one more called chemistry. But before I give that message, is Molly awesome or what? She's amazing. So love you. All right.